Okay, so here we go with some text. So if you've got something, it doesn't have to be this animation project, but it is right now. That's what you're seeing. Continuation of that project. But if you want to add type to a Photoshop document, it's really pretty easy. There is the type tool. So you're looking at the workspace right now. Here's the toolbar over on the left. There's the T. That's for type. You can get there by just pressing T, the T key on the keyboard, or clicking on that tool right there. Once I do click on that, just a reminder, everything you select out of the toolbar will have different properties set up at the top, right? So if I click on T, oh, here we go, up at the top, I can see my typeface, which in my case I've got Avenir there, and it's black, Avenir black, right? So it's a particular type of Avenir, and here's the font size, 180 points. That's pretty big. It's going to be too big, I think, for this. You can, modify the kind of the characteristic of the type, from smooth, strong, crisp, so on, right? So over to the right of that, you can have your type centered or aligned left and right. Right, you're familiar with that from all word processing kinds of stuff. And then the next box is color. Right, it's a little black thing of color. If you click on that, oh, okay. Right now it's just black. I lighten it up, right, and you have a whole range of colors, and you can add those colors just by clicking within the field. You might happen to know the RGB number. Or if you're working on a website, you might have a hexadecimal number. If you were working in print, you might have CMYK values, right? For my project, really doesn't need to be too specific. So I'm just gonna grab red because it's visible, right? So I say okay. That's what I'll be typing in, and look at that. That's huge. That's 180 points. Jeez. So obviously that's way too big. So I'll try going down to say 48 and see what I get. It's a little bit better, right? So here's my message, right? Now I could write out a complete sentence here or a phrase or something like that, but I'll just call it instead of doing that. And I'll just say storm. Okay, storm. Right, can have uppercase, lowercase, whatever's appropriate. And you should be sensitive about the typeface that you use, right? Sans serif, which is what you're seeing right here, has a particular kind of modern 20th century bold look to it. Looks rather contemporary. It's appropriate for some kinds of messages, a variety of messages. It can be a forceful statement. It can just look modern and kind of fashionable, and of course there's a whole range of other typefaces to choose from, right? And just like with most programs you're familiar with, you see examples of that typeface here, right? So there's plenty of serif types, right? And I can go through that. Let's just see if I click. So if I select this with my type tool, am I going to get my switching back and forth? Okay, so I've got that selected, the type, and I've clicked with the cursor inside the typeface box up here, and I'm just using my up and down arrow keys to check out what different typefaces might look like, right? And I'm pretty sure I have to do that. Let me just double check. Yeah, so the type needs to be selected for you to be able to do this, right? And what I'm doing again is I'm using my up and down arrow key to just scroll through the default typefaces here, right? And make a choice between, serif, sans serif, and multiple choices within those categories, right? So I kind of like this for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm going to go with this Augusta. And click off that. So there it is, storm. All right, I clicked on the move tool and the move tool. And by the way, once you write something in your document, if you follow me over to the right side where the layer panel is, you see that it creates a new layer, right? Just like every other layer, you can turn it on and off, right? And with all these layers, I can add special effects. I'm not going to go into that, though. We're going to keep it simple. All right, so with the move tool, you can move this around. Guidelines are showing up that help me center the type. If I just move a little bit more slowly, you know, Photoshop is going to help me center it left and right, and it'll help me center it vertically, right? I don't have to have it there, but I'm going to leave it there like that. And just like with other things, you can have this transform over your animation. You can have it scale. You can have it move in position. Let's just say I'm going to leave it where it is, and I'm going to go like this. And it's my timeline marker down at the bottom here is all the way to the very beginning of my animation. Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll take that and let me just double that for a second. I'm going to open up so I get down here the sub layers. I've got transform, opacity, style, right? So let's do this. At the beginning of this animation, now change the opacity to 0. To do that, I go back over to the layer palette on the right side, and at the top of the layers, you'll see opacity, right? And you can zero it out by clicking in that box and typing 0, 0. Okay. And then I need a keyframe there. So I'm back over to the left side of my timeline. That stopwatch for opacity, I'll click on that. And now I have a keyframe. So that keyframe right there says, okay, there's 0 opacity. So you don't even see the word, right? So maybe I'll have it fade in over 2 seconds. So I'll move my timeline over to 2 seconds, and I'll increase the opacity. I'll make it 100% now. Okay, it's 100%. Okay, so, and it automatically inserted a keyframe. So if I go back to the beginning and I play this, we should have, come on, play. We have storm fading into view. Isn't that nice? Okay, there you go. Okay, so and I've already done some positioning stuff with other elements in this animation. So if you're following that series of tutorials, you can see this drone. The drone, right? Similar to moving the drone, you could, if you wanted to, you could have the type, you know, scroll left to right or something like that, right? So lots of options out there for you. Okay. Okay, that's a little story about that. I guess I'll add one thing is that, you know, maybe maybe you've written something and what you've written is hard to see because the background is so complicated. Okay, so it just occurs to me this might be helpful for you. So maybe I need if your text is getting lost in the complicated image in the background, one thing you could do is put a block of color behind the text. That block of color could be as big as your whole canvas here. It could be just as big as the text. So let's say I want to put a block of color in there. And what I'll do is I'll use my marquee tool and go over here, marquee tool, like that. It's up in the toolbar, by the way. Okay. So it's one of my selection tools. Marquee tool. There's also elliptical. Might be an effective thing. Elliptical. I'm going to just stick with the marquee tool. And I am going to not feather it. I could feather it. Maybe I'll give it just for the point of showing you. Here's some 4 pixels of feathering, right? And I'll draw a box. This is one way to go about that. Now it occurs to me I could just draw a rectangle. There's a rectangle tool down at the bottom. Let's see how this works though. Down at the bottom of the layer palette on the right, you'll see this circle that's half white, half black. It's right next to the layer mask button, by the way. Okay, and if I click on that circle, my top selection here is solid color. Okay, so I could give this a solid color of whatever. It could be black, right? Could be like that. Okay, it could be blue, could be whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it, well, I don't know, I think I'm going to go with that dark blue. Deep blue, like that. Oh, that's kind of nice. Okay, so I'll go like that. Okay, when I made that box, you can see it over in the layer palette. It is now at the top of my layer stack over on the right. You know, I want it to be behind the text, so I'm taking that layer and manually just bumping it down, dragging it down, so now it's under that text. Okay, so all right, so I've got that, but now I might have this problem where, oh, I see that box was made so that it doesn't appear until the word appears. Okay, if you watch me, all right, I'm doing what's called scrubbing. We're going back and forth like that. Okay, I want that blue box to appear the whole time, or that the text is appearing. I'm going to have it fade in just like the text does. Okay, so all I did was grab that clip and I slid it over to the left. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the opacity that I did to the type. Okay, so I'm zeroed out on the timeline. I'm going to take the opacity for that layer and I'm going to go down to 0. Okay, on opacity, over here in the color fill, I'll click on the stopwatch. There's the keyframe. I'll go sliding over 2 seconds, just like you do with the text. I'll bump up opacity to 100%. It already has a new keyframe, so now I've got this thing going on. Move that out of the way. Okay, so there you go. Okay, and that's just an example. Of course, you can modify it, come up with new ideas of what can be done. So I'll leave it at that. Have fun.